Yo, what's up, Red Faction? Today we're going to talk about the Season 21 ability preview that we got just about an hour ago. Um, so, the combat gameplay team is here to talk about near future Destiny ability tuning that's coming in about 20 days. It's been a very busy year with a lot of change in the ability sandbox to the Subclass 3.0 conversion for Void, Solar, and Arc, followed by the brand new Strand subclass. So they're taking time to evaluate the state of our subclasses and system, focusing on adjusting abilities that are either overshooting or not quite hitting our power bar. Today we'll be going through an update to fragment slot adjustments on selection of aspects, PvE focus improvements to Roman supers, and general balance across our subclass suite. These are the goals for Season 21's ability tuning pass. Increased viability of Roman supers in high difficulty PvE, incorporates subclass keywords into a selection of light subclass supers, reduce the amount of unlimited uptime mobility available in the Crucible, increase build crafting capabilities of a selection of stasis and light subclass aspects. So let's get into it. So these are what looks to be the different things they're looking at. I think that's Nova Warp, Stasis, Sentinel Shield. Don't know what that is. Or either of these. Fragment budget review. Over the last year, we consistently heard feedback that single fragment slot aspects feel restrictive to the player build crafting freedom. Fragment slots are critical to balancing leveler we intend to continue to use to control aspect potency, but we don't feel that any current single aspect fragments are overperforming to the point of restricting them to a single slot. So, in Season 21, we're increasing them to 2. To set expectations, we are not committing to a minimum budget of 2 fragment slots for future aspects, and we may change these slot uh, allotments in the future. As we monitor the effective aspects performance following this change, additional updates to their potency level should be expected. So, the increased fragment slot allowed for the following aspects from 1 to 2. For hunters, Trapper's Ambush, Shadow Dive, and Gunpowder Gamble. So now you'll be able to pick two, like, you'll be able to select this and pick an additional fragment to have. Bastion for Titan and Juggernaut. Oh, that's what all those were. Warlock is Chaos Accelerant. So if you use Chaos Accelerant as a thing, you can now select an additional fragment for the next one. Okay. Super tuning updates. With Lightfall's release came 2 new Roman supers, Silk Strike and Blade Fury. The tuning of these supers was an experiment to determine where we felt Roman supers could live in the combat sandbox. We're pretty happy with the results. In Season 21, we're taking a pass at other Roman supers, as well as some underperforming burst supers. To increase the viability, while there's too much nuance in the player base to completely equalize performance of something as diverse as their suite of supers, our hope is that puts them more in level of the playing field. So, one of the ways we're working is increase the viability through damage resistance. In addition to the damage resistant value that supers have against other players, all supers additionally have a intrinsic damage resistance against PvE combatants, which we're increasing. With this change, our goal is that supers, and more particularly melee supers, will become more easily to engage in high difficulty content. All supers have an increased PvE damage resistance by 20%. So your Stormcallers, your um, uh, whatever the Hunter one is called, almost every Titan super is a free roam super. So Dawnblade, Stormtrance, and Nova Warp will have a PvE damage resistance increase, along with all the other ones. But this makes it better for the Roman supers. Um, Titan have the no, not the Berserker, the Sentinel Shield, the Hammer, the Fist of Havoc, frickin' basically every like super that a Titan gets is almost like never one off except for like Thunder Crash, Ward of Dawn, and that's it. They only have like 3 burst supers. Oh, Thunder Crash, Ward of Dawn. Yeah, only 2 actually. In addition, In our initial subclass 3.0 conversion, we opted to not include subclass keywords, i.e., Jolt and Scorch, into most supers. But now that the dust has settled, we are revisiting that idea. With Season 21, we're taking a pass at the roster and adding additional intrinsic behaviors where their inclusion makes sense. Unlike existing interactions such as Arc Staff with Lethal Current or Sentinel Shield controlled demolition, these will be baked into super space behavior. Let's go through the changes class by class. First up, Hunters. Overall, Hunter Supers hit a high-level PvE gameplay. They offer strong burst damage with relatively safe and several already keyword integrations. However, there are still a few supers that are lagging behind the rest of the pack that we'd like to address. Golden Gun and Arc Staff are still underperforming in their intended combat roles, so we're giving them a PvE damage bump that we think will make them more viable. So, for Golden Gun, both Marksman and Deadshot will have an increased PvE damage of 20%. Arc Staff, not the Gathering Storm, will have a PvE damage increase of 20%. For Spectral Blade, has been an underperformer. It gets a PvE damage increase, and heavy attacks will now weaken targets on hit. Fix an issue that caused the right-hand Spectral Blade attack to fail to connect when attacking at maximum attack speed. Gathering Storm will be getting something as well. Gathering Storm's impact damage is increased to 300%. Basically, now you can kill someone if you direct impact them, which kind of already happens, but okay. Delayed lightning strike damage has been increased. The lingering tick damage has been increased. This is versus players, so this gets a substantial buff. Now it deals increased damage versus Well of Radiance and Ward of Dawn. This makes it so it's basically going to be a bigger deterrent to when you're in Mayhem or in any Iron Banner and you see the Wells and the Ward of Dawns. Titan Supers. This is a big one. On the whole, we believe Titan Supers are currently falling a bit short of high-level PvE content. To remedy this, we are increasing the PvE damage for several roaming supers, the Arc, Solar, and Stasis subclass. So, for Fist of Havoc, light attack reduce is now 6% of your super energy. Heavy attack is now 12%. Increase heavy PvE damage by 33%. The heavy attack will now blind people near the center of the slam area. Glacial Quake's heavy slam is in a solid place, but the light attack doesn't offer much. To address this, they're increasing it. So the Shiver Strike, the standard Glacial Quake melee that you have, they're making it better when it's in its super by increasing the speed of it by 10% and increasing its damage. For Sentinel Shield and Hammer Soul and Burning Maul, their performance hasn't really been that much. So this is what they're doing. Sentinel Shields is increased PvE damage by 20%. Hammer of Soul, PvE damage is increased. And for Burning Maul, increased PvE damage by 10%. Now creates a Sunspot on cast when Soul Invictus is equipped, matching the behavior of Hammer of Soul. And the heavy attack cyclone will now apply Scorch over time. For Warlocks, this is a big thing. Nova Warp will have an increased PvE damage by 15%. A fully charged attack will now make enemies volatile on hit. So, Nova Warp time? Nova Bomb is having an increased PvE damage by 20%. But here's my thing. Okay, we're adding all these and everything, but we're not addressing the fact that you're doing this with adding all these things. Like, Gathering Storm is just getting a baseline PvP buff. Like, this right here is all PvP related. Well, the rest of these are getting a PVE thing. But okay. I hope this doesn't make the whole thing kind of more annoying. Um, I'm gonna like using Nova Warp again. I did like it when it first came out a lot. I just feel that it underperforms when you look at all the other things. Nova Bomb is now having increased damage as well, but you haven't really looked at well. Well, it's still everyone's still gonna be well. We need at least one warlock, and then if you're a warlock, just run Nova Bomb. It's basically bringing it back in line to what warlocks have always done. If you're not on well, do Nova Bomb. For Stormcaller, we don't believe either Stormtrance or Chaos Reach is attending, so looking at the PvE damage. For Stormtrance, PvE damage is going to be increased by 25%. The damage ramp while attacking now occurs more quickly, over 3 seconds down from 5, and landfall detonation and Seekers now jolts targets. Everyone get your Storm Dancer's brace. And give us a freaking look for it that actually makes it look good. But that's what I'm going to say. Stormtrance getting that is going to make using Stormcallers, or no, Crown of Tempest, and things like Getaway Artist and Storm Dancer's Race a pick you're going to want. You're going to want that. Um, Now for Chaos Reach. This is a interesting one. Increased damage in PvE by 25%. Sustained damage on a single target now creates a jolting lightning strike at the target's location. Increase the damage resistance versus players by 50%. Increase the maximum strafe. Where's my geos? Well, Geomags, looks like you're going to get some use again from me in Gambit at least. When this comes around. Because increased PvE damage is going to help for Gambit. Because it's going to help melt. Sustained damage will now create a jolting lightning strike. Geomags sustain more. Increase movement speed so you can actually strafe. And adjust the super camera to avoid player's body blocking the target when strafing. We're happy with Vintage Wrath excelling in crowd control tools, so we're giving a small damage boost to increase its usability situations like a boss damage phase. So they're getting a 10% buff from Vintage Wrath, which it's an ad super. It's not a boss super, but okay. And in Daybreak, they're just adding it. The player to look down further to avoid visual effects blocking when moving quickly. Some changes for Strand. The threat of Spike. Increase projectile travel range before returning to the target by 30%. Increase the damage to PvE commands by 55%. Slightly reduce the speed of the dart as it returns to the player, making it easier to catch. Increase the energy gained from it. Now it pierces failing shields. No longer prioritizes the catch action over the grapple melee when the target is within grapple melee range. Titan Frenzied Blade. Decrease the cooldown based on how many melee charges the player has stored. At 0 charges, the cooldown is reduced by 50. At 2 charges, the cooldown is reduced by 30. So it's basically saying be strength based. And prioritize making sure that you can get the more charges more fast. Decrease the cooldown based on how many. Yep, same thing. Increase projectile speed based on the projectile's flight time. Initial velocity is increased by 40 meters per second, up from 30. Final velocity 70, up to 60. Increase the tracking strength. Grapple reduce the base cooldown from 105 to 82. Reduce the minimum time between grapple Feather generation. Reduce the energy generation provided damage over time mechanics. Reduce the grenade generation by trace rifles. So you're telling me that I can run Monte Carlo with it, and as long as I use one of the melee things, I can get my grenade back anyways. Even though you're kind of reducing um, the energy for grenades. Stasis tuning upgrades. So Withering Blade, the Shuriken, has an increased tracking search range on balance versus players by 20% and increased the tracking strength by 12%. Shivering Strike maximum thrust flight increased by 16%, decreased the maximum downward influence of gravity in flight by 18. Howl of the Storm increased the freezing with cone versus players by 31. Frost Pulse now provides 2 meters of additional melee lunge. Provides 2 meters of additional melee lunge range after activation for 1.2 seconds. Light subclass tuning upgrades. For Titans, Seismic Strike, Shield Bash, and Hammer Strike now 15%. Now cost 15% less melee energy on activation. Base cooldown is standardized to a 91 second. Previously ranged from 101 to 114 based on your strength stat. In Season 21, we're making adjustments to Knockout, Shield Throw, Throwing Hammer, and Sunspots. Knockouts, lunge range has been increased to 5.5. Uncharged melee PvE damage. Bonus increase from 60 to 100. Shield Throw and Throwing Hammer are some improvements to usability against fast moving targets. Shield Throw's base impact is up to 70, increased consistency on finding and adjusting the shield trajectory toward new target after a bounce. Now adjust your initial flight trajectory based on your aim assist target. So you've increased its. So if you lock, if you let's say you lock onto someone and you throw it, it has a better flight. With the launch of this, Sol Invictus, increased damage dealt by some sunspots to enemy players take up to 22%. Oh, great. That means frickin' get ready for Lower Splendid to come back. For hunters, making a change to Night Stalk and Gunslinger Melee. Snare Bomb, increase the PvE weaken duration on detonation from 4 to 8. So now there will be weaker longer. For Gunslingers, they got a PvE detonation nerf, but the impact damage has kind of been increased. The weighted throwing hammer on mouse and keyboard reduced the minimum tracking shape by 20% and maximum tracking shape by 10. Shape grows over 5 seconds after the projectile is thrown. Projectile speed increased to 30 meters per second to 40, so now it goes faster, and tracking has been increased. Okay. Gunpowder Gamble's fragment slot now will charge faster to 6%. For Warlocks, changes to Incinerator Snap, Ball of Lightning, and pair of Chaos Accelerant boosted grenades. For Incinerator Snap, fix an issue preventing the secondary projectile arming shape from activating. So, when you do the snap, total damage versus players reduced to compensate for its consistency. So now the projectiles are going to be more closer together, but it does slight less damage. It does like 15 less points of damage, but that's more consistent in terms of how it will track. Ball of Lightning has had a PvE damage increase, reduced the ping scaler on both primary and secondary destinations, so combats are less likely to get knocked out of the secondary strike while the player is amplified. For Chaos Accelerant, the Scatter Grenade. Increase the PvE damage to 30% for Ball of Lightning. Oh, wait. Chaos Accelerant. So when you charge it, the Scatter Grenades will be more consistent when it's charged. Increase the submunition arming duration, so it takes a little bit. Fix a bug where submunitions were impacting on the ground on creation some situations, resulting in early detonation. increase the charge hold time to 4. So you basically you can hold handled supernova when you do the charge from a magnetic grenade. Let's talk about lightning surge. We identified the bug allowing lightning surge to effectively one shot an enemy playing Crucible if near a wall or other surface. Fix the issue allowing lightning surge to deal more instances of secondary strike damage than intended. Now targets can take 2 instances of damage from a single activation of the ability, one from the primary lightning strike player and the other from the secondary lightning strike. This chance damage management general. It's damage. But without the ability to one shot and okay. Huh. Subclass tune. Scorch. The stun time fall off versus players has increased stun time before stacks begin falling off. So you'll be scorched a little longer, but PvE commands will be scorched a little longer. Reduce the base damage of jolt down and reduce the additional damage scale versus major combatants. Speed boosters. Speed boosters. Bonus jump acceleration scalar reduced to 1.25. Now activates after sprinting after two and a half seconds down from 3 seconds. Now lingers while the player is not sprinting for 2 seconds, up from 1.5. Huh. Oh, that's been the ability preview for season. Kind of one thing I'm gonna say is it's gonna be hard to see because I like as much as I like Strand. The Strand Warlock Super needs a damage buff on the initial hit because you'll hit a Guardian like in PvP with like 2 or 3 of your things and it will do nothing, but you do that to them in Gambit and it's completely different. So um, I think going. I'm going to say this. I have not been a solo warlock in a while. I don't think I'm going to become a solo warlock again unless something happens with Dawnblade to make it better. Dawnblade, I feel, are for people that they really like the whole just throw a flaming sword. So cool. I don't like it. Um, well has just become too much of a thing that you have to have it. Um, Arc Warlocks, Geo, the whole thing with Chaos Reach now might make Geos a better pick now, but it will never be where it was when Geomaze could actually help you get super energy. But you also have Storm Storm Dancer's Brace coming, Crown of Tempest. I mean, heck, if you're a big fan of using, grenades, there's always Getaway Artists. So Arc's in a good spot. I think it's going to become better now. Nova Warp is going to become better. Nezarec Sin is still going to be the king of void-based weaponry. Controverse Hold with the whole changes to Chaos Accelerant. Um, might make it better. Even that new Warlock gloves could become better. Incinerator Snap is probably the only thing that might be okay, cool, fine, awesome. Ball of Lightning, I mean, it's better to use like Ball of Lightning when you need the range and you don't feel like sliding to get the electric static surge or the frickin' little, but yeah, Void and Arc and Strand Warlocks are probably the best for like PvE, PvP. If in PvE you already have a well. The hunter changes. I mean, sure, I guess if you like that kind of thing. Titan Titans are getting some substantial things. Hunters, yeah. But yeah, that's all I'll say. That's just gonna be it's just gonna be interesting to see where this new season goes. So that being said, everyone, I'm gonna get this up. Red faction, have fun, be good. See you later.